So a couple months ago, or maybe it was only a few weeks ago, I uploaded a video um, about evolution, a sort of uh, evolutionary narrative in under 2 minutes, and I had some help from a couple other YouTubers, and I submitted this to a contest by Discover Magazine. They were asking for submissions to sort of explain Darwin's theory of evolution to hard-headed creationists, as they put it in the submission guidelines. And I sort of ignored, those guidelines and chose to give a more cosmological perspective on evolution than the biological Darwinian perspective they were looking for. So I don't expect to win the contest, but P.Z. Myers, the biologist at the University of Minnesota and noted public atheist, is the judge of this contest, and I also just listened to him be interviewed and sort of exchange some words with the molecular biologist Dennis Alexander, who's also the head of the Faraday Institute for Science and Religion at Cambridge. And it was an interesting discussion. I ended up writing a blog. I spent the last few hours putting that together, and I posted it on P.Z. Myers' blog, and I don't expect him to respond to it, but at least it'll spur some discussion here on YouTube and on my blog, I hope. And I think the basic issue that they were discussing, Alexander and Myers, was whether or not there's some inherent conflict between science and religion. Now, reading some of P.Z. Myers' blogs, he sort of throws around this word religion as though it's very easy to know what he means, and if you ask him, he would probably say, well, I mean any sort of irrational belief system that's not based in scientific evidence. That would be religion for Myers. And I would say that certainly there are spiritual worldviews that are based on certain, points of view that don't involve the scientific method. Obviously that's so, but it seems that where Alexander and Myers are really disagreeing was whether or not we should admit into our worldview any sort of views which cannot be supported by empirical scientific evidence. Alexander, in fact, accused P.Z. Myers of scientism in the sense that, while Myers was willing to admit that, one really shouldn't apply the scientific method while reading poetry if one wanted to, get the poetry out of it, so to speak. But Myers was still seemingly arguing that there are no justified beliefs that aren't scientifically able to be scientifically validated. He didn't say that outright, but he pretty well implied it, I would say. He did argue that he didn't think we needed religion in order to, have moral discourse, in order to do art, though he did admit that often religious and spiritual symbols make for good poetry. But at the end of the day, I think what was going on here is that Myers was equating materialism with science, and therefore saying that it was in complete and utter conflict with any sort of religion or spiritual practice or set of beliefs. And of course, I would want to challenge that. I don't think that the scientific method is in any way equivalent to materialism as a sort of metaphysical system. And I go into this in my blog a little bit. I think there are multiple metaphysical systems which one could interpret the empirical findings of science from. And if one's temperament is such that materialism feels most appropriate, then that's okay. But one shouldn't attempt to say that science has somehow proven that materialism is true. Materialism being the idea that our universe is entirely explainable in terms of chance and necessity, that it's a machine or a mechanism playing out of certain deterministic rules with no underlying purpose or meaning. Of course, there are many problems with this view, but one very easy to understand, I would think, problem is that it neglects the scientist, the human ability to know the universe, to reason about it, and to make logical inferences in regards to it, is left out of this picture of a completely mechanical, mindless universe. And I go into what cosmologists refer to as the anthropic principle to sort of lay out why I think any scientific picture must at least allow for the possibility of human consciousness emerging in this universe that we study scientifically. And I don't think that based on purely mechanical principles we would ever arrive at life, or much less conscious, intelligent life. And I'll link you to my blog. That'll link you to P.Z. Myers' blog. It'll link you to the discussion between P.Z. Myers and Dennis Alexander if you want to listen to that. And I'll also link you through my blog to a paper that I've written where I sort of go into depth about why I don't think a completely mechanistic or materialistic picture of the universe allows us to account for the emergence of life or the existence of human beings capable of knowing a universe in the first place. So yeah, I'll leave it at that, and please let me know what you think, and I look forward to discussing these issues. Thanks for listening.